Hi, Rob B here with Rob D, and you, of course, are listening to the Property Podcast. Now, we go big picture, we do theory, we do all the fluffy stuff, but this week we want you to take action. So we're going to give you 7 property tips that you can start using today.
Welcome to the Property Podcast, where every Thursday morning property investors come to be informed and inspired. This week, so much that you can take away and put into use to make yourself a more successful investor. In a shocking twist, our news story this week is not from The Express, it's from the BBC. And the headline is Soaring Second Home Ownership Hitting Young People. This is some research by a think tank called the Resolution Foundation that says that the number of British people who own a second home or a buy-to-let has doubled since 2001. 1 in 10 people now own an additional property. And this is hitting young people, it's making property unaffordable, and home ownership rates for young people are falling. Now, Rob, this is the type of headline, the type of story we've seen many, many times before. And as is often the case, it seems like they're not looking at quite all the data here. There's something they've missed.
Yeah, you hear this argument made quite a lot that investors are pricing out first-time buyers. You know, on the face of it, it kind of makes sense. If we buy more property, there's less to go around, and therefore it's harder to get into the market. If you treat it as simplistic as that, then that will be the conclusion you get to. And I've heard some really smart, intelligent people make this argument. But when you look at all the data, there is a different picture being painted here. And luckily, there is a lot of data out there if you want to go looking for it. The Nationwide has a wonderful collection of data. They've been collecting data on all sorts of things related to property for decades now. But one of the things they collect data on is first-time buyer affordability measures. And they look at mortgage costs versus the price of property. So basically, how much of your income is going towards your mortgage. Now, this data goes all the way back to 1983, which was a fantastic year, wasn't it, Rob? It was the year we were born, but also, maybe more importantly, the year that Nationwide started collecting this data. Back then, you would spend 31.5% of your income on your mortgage. So a lot of time has passed since then. Where are we today? Well, today, we're on 31.8%. So since the beginning of the 80s to today, we're pretty much as we were in terms of percentage of your income spent on your mortgage. So therefore, owning your property as a first-time buyer, and remember this is a first-time buyer index as well, so it's specifically targeted at the people this article talks about. There's no change. And the average is around about 30%. Now, there have been swings over the years. It's been over 50% and it's been as low as 17%. But the average is around about 30%. And actually, over the last decade, it's lower now than it's ever been. And that's because wage inflation is starting to take place and interest rates remain low. So when affordability for first-time buyers is low and they have the ability to use Help to Buy, I actually disagree, Rob. While it may be easy to make the argument that first-time buyers are being hurt by property investors, it's actually a lazy argument, because when you look at the data and when you look at what is actually happening and you dig a bit deeper, then you realise there's a lot of fuss, but actually it's not built on much.
Unsurprisingly, I completely agree. I think it's very easy to look at the fact that you've got more people owning buy-to-let properties and you've got young people supposedly finding it difficult and think that the two must be related to each other. But there's so many other factors in play. And of course, there's the fact that the priorities that people have now aren't necessarily the ones that they did in the 50s, 60s or 70s. Home ownership isn't necessarily the ideal for everyone. And there is so many trends. We talked about the trend towards flexibility, towards city living, towards experiences over things. There's all these different factors that mean that you perhaps shouldn't be saying that society should be exactly like it was 50 years ago and holding that up as some kind of ideal. The counterpoint to some of this will be, well, what about actually saving up for that deposit in the first place? Well, firstly, at the moment, there's the Help to Buy scheme to help first-time buyers. You can disagree with that policy, and I do, but the point is it is there and it is something you can use, and it does make things more affordable than they would otherwise be. And then there's the fact, Rob, that I think London is skewing things so much. The fact is, as a first-time buyer in London, you need an enormous deposit. But I think when commentators are just looking at London, that ends up skewing their perception of what it's like in the country as a whole. Absolutely, because while the average right now for the UK is 31.8% of your income, in London, it's 58.8%.
So London does dramatically skew the data here. And yes, if you are talking about just London, then this article stacks up. But the article doesn't say just London. And again, shockingly or not, the media is mistaking London for the UK. In the rest of the UK, property is affordable and getting on the property ladder is achievable. It just may be that not everybody wants to get on the property ladder. That can be a thing. You know, home ownership amongst young people is down, but so is horse ownership from 100 years ago. Trends happen, things change, and the desire for young people to own their own home just doesn't seem as strong now. It seems like we're aging up. A bit like marriage as well. You know, trends happen. Everybody used to get married when they were young. Now they do it later in life. Same with children. Different trends play out. Just because 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, things were different, it doesn't mean it's right or wrong now. It's just how we live our lives. So it's an interesting news story because it allows us to get into so much more detail. And Rob, this is one we'll come back and revisit in future weeks in a bit more depth, I'm sure.
Meetups are coming around again. We do them every month. It's the first Thursday of the month, and that means that in 2 weeks' time, there are going to be meetups across the UK and beyond. There are still tickets available for the majority of meetups, but a lot of them are getting very booked up. So get along to propertyhub.net/meetups, find your nearest and get yourself booked in. It's such a great way of meeting other investors locally with nothing to sell, no pressure, just some nice, friendly property networking. And also, Rob, we've crossed a really nice milestone this week.
Yeah, thank you very much to everyone who's supported us on YouTube. We've only just started and already we've hit 5,000 subscribers, which is amazing. Thank you so much. We're trying to get out at least a video a week. We are getting more ambitious with the things we want to do on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed yet, check out the show notes or search for Property Hub UK in YouTube and you can find us there. Subscribe, hit the little bell notification thing, and you will make sure you see our videos that come out every single week. One we put out in the last week is why Buy to Let isn't dead. So yeah, we've talked about that in a podcast and we've expanded on it further via YouTube. So make sure you go and check out that one.
Our main topic this week is 7 property tips you can start using today. Because we really enjoyed doing the big picture episodes and the philosophical episodes and the mindset episodes. They're all great and we get really good feedback on them. But sometimes you just want something quick and actionable that you can grab, put into use and have more success as a result. So today we've got 7 of those covering everything from before you buy a property, through management, through to your exit and how you run your business. There's guaranteed to be something in here that you can put to use and get better results.
So let's work through that list. Rob, what's number 1?
Okay, first of all, account for your time. When you're running the numbers for an investment, work out an hourly rate for your time and factor that in because that was going to dramatically change the return that you make from your investment. A mistake that people make in business in general, and they make it in property as well, is valuing their own time at nothing. And you wouldn't work for somebody else for nothing. You wouldn't be able to find someone to do this job for you who would want to be paid nothing. So why pretend that your time is free? If you do that, it completely changes what a good investment looks like. Looking out for some once-in-a-lifetime unbelievable investment that you can get at 20% BMV and all that kind of thing. If you have to spend thousands of hours a whole year looking for it, then that's going to mean that the ROI from that actually isn't so great. Same for flips. Not saying that flipping is a bad strategy, but you can get completely the wrong idea about how much you make for it if you assume that the hundreds of hours that you spend on it aren't costing you anything. They are. The point here is that you can be really, really hands-on with property, or you can be really, really hands-off with property. You've got the choice. There's lots of different ways you can get involved, and no one way is right. But to work out which is right for you, to put them all on an equal footing, and to get an accurate idea of the return you're going to make, you've got to put a value on your time.
Number 2 on our list is become a Rightmove power user. Okay, so Rightmove, it's probably not a new one for you. You use it a lot, right? But are you using it to its full capability? Just going on and searching a postcode and having a look at a few properties doesn't make you a power user. It's using all the wonderful tools that Rightmove offers that will make you a true power user. So here's a starter for 10 to get you going. First of all, you want to be using alerts. If you invest in just one particular area, then alerts is an absolute must. But even if you're more open to where you want to invest and you will look at different towns and cities, you can set up multiple alerts. I have that. They're really useful. You can find out immediately when a property goes onto the market. You can, if you want, if there's a lot of properties hitting your inbox, set it for daily or even weekly. It's up to you. But if you are a property investor and you are looking for your own deals, then you must use alerts. Related to this, because you can have alerts for this feature, is use the map search. If you've got a very specific area that you want to invest in, you can draw a map. In some areas, you may want to avoid a certain part of town or even a road. You can do that by drawing around it. It's a really useful tool, but once it's saved, you can then get alerts telling you about properties coming up in that area. Again, another really useful tool. And there's more. You've also got the keyword search. Say you want to invest in the best part of town, but the area has low price points. So let's say you want to invest in the centre of Sunderland. You can type into the keyword search penthouse. So all the penthouse apartments will come up. There is no search for penthouse apartments, but by using that keyword, you can find them. You can check the land registry for free on Rightmove to see what properties have sold for before, to give you an idea of what the vendor may or may not be willing to sell for. And if that wasn't enough, you can use extensions like Property Log, which you can find in the Google Chrome store for free, which tell you the movement on property prices. A really useful tool and an absolute must for your toolkit. So Rightmove isn't just for searching. Rightmove, if used correctly, is an incredible tool for property investors. So put some time aside and make sure you become a power user.
And if you want to pick up more tips about using the portals, check out episodes 2, 3, 5, and all the way back in episode 14, where we talked about those topics. You'll find links to both of those in the show notes. Third tip, really important one, is to think about your exit from the start. So if you're doing buy-to-let, you might be looking at a holding period of 10 years or 20 years or more. That's fantastic. The long-term potential of property investment is something that we've talked about a lot in the past. But that doesn't mean that you should never be thinking about the exit. And a mistake that new investors often make is buying properties that are going to be very hard to sell in the future. So the classic one is non-standard construction. You'll find properties, often flats, and they'll look really cheap. They'll look like absolute bargains, but it'll turn out that it's a high-rise made out of concrete or something like that. Anything that a lender considers to be non-standard construction makes it very hard to get a mortgage on, and as a result makes it very difficult to sell. You can only sell to cash buyers, so that's going to reduce the number of people you can sell to significantly. Short leases are another one that we see. That's something that can make it very difficult to sell a property. And you also get people going for highly specialist investments like hotel rooms, which can look great in the brochure, but the performance as an investment is debatable anyway. But certainly when you get to the end, it's very difficult to actually sell them on. This sounds like something you might not need to worry about that much, because if you're going to be holding a property for 20 years, it's like, well, I'll just cross that bridge when I come to it, and I'm sure there'll be someone who'll want to buy it off me. But the point is, because the buyer pool is going to be limited, that is going to constrain the capital growth that you get. And the great thing about property investment over the long term is the capital growth. So by buying something that's going to be hard to sell, you constrain your capital growth potential. So it hurts you the whole way through, not just when it comes to that moment that you want to sell. So think about that from the start. A lot of investors in their search for a bargain overlook this factor, and it can be a very expensive mistake.
This next tip is a simple one, but it's hardly ever followed through, and that's why we're bringing it to your attention again. What is it? It's making sure your mortgage broker is experienced with working with investors. And when I say experienced, not worked on a few buy-to-lets, I mean really experienced, beyond experience. Make sure they're an expert, because your journey as a property investor can be made or broken by your experience when it comes to mortgages. If you are unable to get a mortgage on a property, you may walk away from it. But it might not be unmortgageable. It might be that your broker hasn't considered all the options or isn't aware of all the options. Most brokers aren't going to hold their hands up and say to you, oh, actually, I don't know. Or actually, I don't want your business because I just can't do it. It's not going to happen. You know, they either don't want to tell you or they have the belief that they can do it and they're just kidding themselves. Unfortunately, you're none the wiser either way. So what you should be doing before working with any mortgage broker is getting to understand them. Are they an investor? Do they really understand this? What percentage each month of their mortgages that they do are buy to let? Dig deeper, ask questions. Don't be afraid to get to the real truth. If they just do a handful every month, then that is not good enough. Only last week, a client we work with called in to say their property was unmortgageable. Lo and behold, Dave Cookson at Property Hub Mortgages steps in and finds a solution and puts them right. Now, this isn't to say you must work with Property Hub Mortgages. Of course, we've built it the way we believe it should be, which is a team of experts. But the lesson here is whoever you work with, and there are others out there, make sure that this is what they do the majority of the time, not some of the time. Because you don't want the pain of giving up on an investment that you think is a winner, only to be told you can't get a mortgage, when actually you might have been able to.
So a lot of these tips so far have been around acquiring a property, but what about actually letting that property once you've got it? Well, something that we have done at Property Hub Lets, and something that I've done when I've let out a property myself, is holding block viewings. In other words, rather than getting one potential tenant around at 6 o'clock and the next one at 6:30, get everyone to come along at the same time. This works amazingly well for a couple of reasons. The first is that it saves you time. You're not going to be there for as long. And also, if you get one or two people not showing up, which always happens, then you're not just sitting there for 15 minutes or half an hour or however long it is until the next slot is booked in. So it's more efficient for you. But the real power of this is the psychology. When someone gets there and they see other people looking around the property as well, they're going to get that fear of missing out. If they hate it or it's not suitable for them, of course, that doesn't change anything. But if they like it, they're going to be more likely to act and do so quickly because they don't like the idea of somebody else getting in there before them and them missing out. It's not dishonest because all those other people would have been looking around the property. They would have just been doing it at different times. But by having it all happen at the same time, you're going to harness that psychological advantage. And often you're going to come away from that block viewing not just with one offer, but with multiple offers.
Another way to get offers or get your property let is consider pets. Most people love pets, right? Dogs, cats, hamsters, gerbils, goldfish, whatever. We love them. Most people have them. But yet, most landlords won't entertain them. Certainly the bigger ones anyway. But that creates an opportunity. Because most landlords and investors immediately say no to pets, it means there's a huge group of people that are looking to rent property but are unable to find a place to live. So if you are willing to entertain the idea of allowing people to have pets in your property, then you may be able to let your property quicker. Now, in the past, if you consider pets, what you could do is hold a larger deposit. But unfortunately, you are unable to do that now, which again hurts people who have pets because that's how they would have got around it. But you can tackle this another way. If you manage a property yourself locally, you can go and meet the pet, interview the pet. So yes, you do meet the potential tenants, all of them. So if Rover the dog is one of the potential tenants, go and meet Rover. Better still, if you can, go and meet the tenants in their current home and just see how it's been looked after. Just see how that pet is behaving within that home. That will give you a good idea. That will give you a good idea of how they're going to behave in your home. So don't automatically rule out pets because so many others are, and that's your opportunity.
Now, a lot of these tips have pinpointed particular parts of the investment process, but this last one encompasses everything, and that is run your investments like a business. The first absolute essential of doing that is using a separate bank account for your property income and outgoings. It's astonishing how many people just have all their property income and expenses coming in and out of their personal bank account. When you do that, it's almost impossible to actually track how much money you're making and what your costs are and everything else because it's all intermingled. It's an absolute nightmare for your accountant as well. So even if you're investing in your own name, not through a limited company, it's very simple to just open a separate personal bank account and run everything through there. If you don't do that already, please make it your project for the next month to set that up because it's a little bit of hassle, but then it makes everything so much easier. It allows you to do things like setting aside a bit of money each month for maintenance. So you could have a linked savings account and put aside either a particular monetary amount or a percentage of your profits every month as a float to cover you for when maintenance crops up. We've talked about this kind of thing on the podcast before. This isn't something that I actually do, but a lot of investors who have more maintenance heavy properties do this, and it's a really good idea. Those are the foundations, but on top of those foundations, there's so much more that you can do as well. Once you've got everything set up properly, there's all kinds of clever time-saving things you can do with technology to automate your bookkeeping, to make it easy to track invoices, to track whether rent's been paid or not, and to do some analysis as well. So you can see which properties are the most profitable for you, which have the highest maintenance costs, who owes you money, all that kind of thing. There's all kinds of fancy stuff that you can do, but at least make sure that you're doing the basics and running your investments like a business.
Now, we teach you how to do this with Property Hub Tax. So if you want to work with Property Hub Tax, you can, and we'll do all this for you. But even better, If you don't want to work with us, I know this sounds weird, you don't have to. We're going to teach you how to do this for free. We're going to treat this subject as its own podcast in a few weeks and teach you how to set up your own property business with all the cool systems and processes we use at Property Hub Tax. So if you want someone to do it for you, fantastic. But if you don't, we're going to teach you how to do it for free. Yep, no property secrets on the Property Podcast. Crazy business model, but you guys seem to like it.
It's that part of the show now where we like to celebrate your success. If you've done a great deal, if you've finished a refurb, if you've just taken your first steps into property investing, we want to hear about it. We love hearing how you've taken things like the tips we've talked about today and actually put them into action. You can do it on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram at Property Hub UK. You can do it on the forum, or you can even go old school and send us an email. Nothing wrong with that at all. And that's what Rachel has done. Rachel said, I'm new to property investing and have been hugely impressed with the free help, advice and support that is available via the Property Hub. I love listening to the podcasts each week and checking out forum questions and responses from other users, as well as reading the magazine I receive on the doorstep. I'm getting closer to feeling confident about making my first investment purchase, much of which is thanks to the content and support provided by the team at the Property Hub. So a big thank you to all. Just waiting for Property Hub tax and mortgage appointments to get me set up in the right way. And I love this, Rob, because we've shared lots of things in the past about people who've bought 6 properties in a year and all kinds of magnificent things. But actually building up the knowledge and the confidence to take that first step is massively significant in itself.
It really is. And that's why we do this, because we want you to be confident. Of course, it's going to be scary, no matter how many podcasts you listen to, even if you work with Property Hub Tax and Property Hub Mortgages. Yes, you will feel more confident because you've got experts surrounding you and helping you with that process, but it's still scary. So the first one will be the toughest to do, emotionally. But Rachel, I've got every confidence you'll do it. So please get back in touch when you've taken that epic step and you've made your first investment. We'd love to hear how it's gone.
So that is the Property Podcast done for another week. Some tips there that you can go and start using right now. So go do it. We'll be back next Thursday with the Property Podcast, and before then, Ask Rob and Rob on Tuesday. And in the meantime, keep in touch on the socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Property Hub UK. So until we meet again, have a great week, and we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.